I'm Will Shiers, I'm the editor of Commercial Motor Magazine, and today I'm at Hireco's truck stop at DP World London Gateway, where I'm going to be talking to some industry experts about some hot topics. The last few years have been unprecedented for the haulage industry. Hot on the heels of COVID and Brexit, we've had the increased cost of raw materials, the increased cost of fuel, we've had the driver shortage, and of course the race to decarbonisation. What are you guys doing to help your customers?
Openness. We're trying to go open and say these are what the raw material costs, the OE costs of components are. We have to pass these on. So the communications that we're getting from our industry partners, we're just being open doing that, because if any of us are accused of trying to profiteer out of this and there is a lot of dried, then that will come back to bite. It will come back around. So that's how we're trying to do that, and then mitigating them where you can. But because of the long lead times, it's difficult to fix a price to plan ahead because it's moving. We've had increases for 18 months, for 6 quarters now. I had to go out every quarter with an increase just to remain alive.
So what are lead times like then for new trailers?
For a new trailer, you're the best part of 11 months now.
So if a lead time is about 11 months, how do you possibly price a job? You don't know what the cost of the raw materials are going to be.
We can't project the cost because the raw materials involved, whether it's steel, aluminium, rubber, plastic. We all know about the microchip scenario. And it's a moving target. And then it's people like Hireco who have to pick this up.
I think through the volatility of the raw materials, from our side, we're really trying to sort of see what we can do to guarantee continuity of supply. It's been very difficult to get hold of raw materials, even though the prices have been escalating. So for us, it's what we could do to put things in place to guarantee that continuity of supply. So what we've done is we've tried to take more production in-house to try and give us more flexibility to make sure we can deliver on time for customers.
And because of that supply chain as well, I think it's seen a standardisation of a lot of products. So we're making more standard trailers than we ever have to try and keep people with trailers. Because of the trailer shortage last year, after the COVID came out, the internet, everybody was clicking and buying. We've never built as many box fans. That's gone now because there's a good to those trailers out there. Everybody's wanting curtain siders, but a standard 13.6 with a 3 metre side aperture. So we've geared up for that. So consequently from the axles, any rear steers, things like that, they've been on the back burner. So these guys have had to try and produce to keep us and our competitors going to keep building trailers for the requirement for people like Hireco.
Like I say, I think it's a perfect storm. We had Brexit, COVID came in, just as we're coming out of the tail end of COVID, there's now the war in Ukraine. It's made all these knock-on effects, so semiconductor issues. So for the manufacturing side, it's really difficult for a company like Hireco to full project our cost, and certainly our customers' cost. So the pressure's coming from all angles. If we go and do a deal with a customer or 3PL that's working for a big end user, they're fixing their cost. They've won that contract by fixing their cost. We then take the order for the trailer. The trailer's not coming for 10, 11 months. By the time we get to the build of that trailer, the cost has gone up, and in some cases that cost has gone up 30-35%, which is absolutely enormous. And then we've got to go back to the customer and say, look, the cost has gone up, we can't control it. We can have a slight effect on the residual value because we've got our own used sales sector, so we can see the price differentials. But how long does that last for? So it's made it increasingly difficult for our customer, end user, to sort of plan ahead and understand his cost base.
I think for us getting through Brexit was a difficult enough scenario. To then go through the pandemic with much reduced workforces, seeing the rising cost then on raw material, and then to enter into the Ukraine war on top of that. To give you an idea, we've seen steel prices sort of go, I would say, at least threefold. And obviously for us, a trailer axle is half a ton really of steel, or bar perhaps 2 kilos of it. So we're dramatically affected.
So with the supply chain issues, then we try to focus when the actual asset's in fleet, so to try and save as much money as possible for the operator when they're running the asset. So we invested heavily in smart technology, and through tracking and TPMS, we want to keep the fleet on the road as much as possible and to make savings on tyre costs where we can on that.
Yeah, so tell me more about tyre pressure monitoring. TPMS, I believe it's about to be mandatory, isn't it, in the UK?
If they can decide when.
Yeah. Well, we, as a business, looked at smart technology as a whole. So every trailer that we've built or had built over the last 2 years, we fit with tracking technology. We've moved from tracking technology into ePower, so the electronic brake performance monitoring systems. From there, we've started to fit TPMS, so the tyre pressure monitoring system. We want every single trailer fitted from this year onwards with that as a thing. So whether or not that legal requirement comes in, it's an absolute must for us as a business. So we can constantly monitor the tyre pressures, and where there are tyres, we look after that. We can extend the life of the tyre. We can reduce the downtime. In one particular case, we've reduced tyre blights by 97%. So having that tyre pressure monitoring system on the asset increases the tyre life, reduces the blowouts, and what we're doing is we are contacting customers now, and we're telling them, we're seeing a reduction in the pressure of that tyre, or we're seeing a rapid deflation of the tyre. You're at mile marker 17 on the M1. If you come off to the next junction, we'll direct you where to go, or we'll have a tyre provider waiting and ready for you to get that tyre changed or repair that puncture. What that's doing is a number of things. That's reducing huge expenditure for our end user. The average cost of a tyre blade can range between £1,000 and £2,000, depending on the damage it causes. But that's not really the entirety of the cost. That truck's off the road, it's parked at the side of the M1, it's caused a 10-mile tailback, their name's down the side of it, or their customer's name's down the side of it. So from a PR perspective, it's just a disaster. And equally, that time off the road. So by reducing those by 97% on a big fleet, can have significant benefits to our customers. So whether or not that law is passed or when they decide to do that, we're going ahead with it anyway. It's just better for us as a business all round to have that on our fleet.
Following on from the TPMS, we also have the ePPMS system. So that's monitoring the brakes constantly and reducing the downtime from another level. So
what does that stand for?
So electronic brake performance monitoring system.
Got you.
Now that's allowing the customer to do one rolling brake test a year rather than 4, reducing the downtime and improving the safety of the trailer by constantly knowing how that trailer is performing, and similarly, reducing the maintenance cost for the customer.
Well, if taking it off the road, if a customer's following good form and taking it off the road an extra 3 times for a brake roller test, the cost involved in that, it's not just the £50 or £60 putting that through the MOT station, it's the time off the road. But with the EPMS, it's monitoring that 24/7. And we do that for a number of ways. We've got our in-house tracking systems, but we also use the BPW tracking system, and we use Accent, Masterall. So we've got we're not solely fixed on our own system. We will look at whatever the customer their base of tracking on their fleet we'll tap into, and our central base for our tracking systems can take in information from other tracking systems, so we can get it all moved on one place. So if a customer wants the BPW system or wants the Accent system or we can bring that all into one place for them. So it helps us from a management level, managing the trailer itself, or managing the fleet itself, is very easy to do with our central maintenance desk.
And there's so much data available throughout all of these telematic systems that we want to analyse that for the customer, and even just to make their fleet management a lot easier. So when we're booking in a compliance service, before we pick up the phone call, we know exactly where that asset is, and we've got our suppliers on hand in the right areas to be there when required. So just analysing that, all that information that's available, like even codes that appear on, through the system, we know that there's a problem with your asset before you do, essentially.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a big
so
piece
picking
for
up
us.
the DTC codes.
All the DTC codes.
Yeah.
So we can see, in advance what's happening. And the other thing is giving that customer the report, giving that customer, as Aaron said, the data, taking that pack through, whether it be monthly or quarterly, and saying, look, this is the utilisation of your asset. So we can tell you how many empty miles you're running. So, and when you're giving the customer that kind of data, well, that's his carbon footprint as well, isn't it? So, hopefully we're helpful on all sides. We can really tell them empty running, this is the amount of breakdowns that you encounter, this is what we can do to alleviate those breakdowns. It's about offering that added value to the customer and again improving the performance of their assets. It's kind of become a bit of a slogan with us, but in the past, talking to customers and you had a rental company ringing up trying to rent the trailers, or I think now we're literally talking to our customer base and saying, look, can we come and talk to you about improving what you've got? Can we help you take miles off the road? Can we help you, maximise your uptime? And so many customers now are open to having those discussions about how they can improve.
And you can do it retrospectively. You don't have to do it at OE fit. So we're fitting a multitude of different trackers for different customers, but because of what you guys do, you can encompass all that and you can say, right, we'll take fleet if they're on a certain time, well, they can incorporate it into this. So it's not critical to have to do it at OE.
No, it's not. Yeah, we retrofit. We retrofitted 2,000 systems this year. That was the ePower, tyre pressure monitoring systems, and the general tracking. But we think the smart technology is really the future of where customers need to get to on their trailers. It really will improve our overall cost base.
So are your customers taking full advantage of that data?
No,
Not yet,
no,
definitely
they're not, and and it's quite evident to see that a lot of customers actually have got tracking systems fitted, and they've got so much technology and information available to them, but they're not taking advantage of it. I think that's where we really come into our own, because we're going to the customer telling them, so we're preempting. So if the customer's got an asset and there's a problem on the horizon, rather than becoming a reactive event, we're turning it into a proactive event. So we're ringing the customer up saying, look, you've got this problem. It's going to turn into a bigger problem if we don't fix it now. We can have someone with you in the next 45 minutes, or we can have someone to you tonight to get this fixed, or to certainly look at it. Or we can have a replacement asset ready for you and we'll get that one off the road. Or there'll be a tyre provider waiting to change the tyre or inflate. There's a two-way street there as well. When we're contract hiring assets, the maintenance is my cost. It's their business's cost. So we want to make sure that we're reducing our cost for our customer, because we can keep the price right. And to do that, we need to be proactive on our maintenance. We need to extend the life of the tyre. If that tyre is running at 95 psi instead of running at 125, 135 psi, it reduces the tyre life by about 30-40%. So it's in our best interest to keep that tyre inflated. That affects the customer's miles per gallon. So there's no reason why a customer would stop you being proactive with that asset. So we need to communicate more with the customer. We're setting up new apps, we're setting up new push notifications, new push alerts to our customers, which then becomes quite difficult the bigger the fleet, because it's then a case of, right, those assets are in that location, it's this person that's looking after it, and so on and so forth. So again, our proactivity is not just on the tech, but actually in communication with the customer and if you like, upgrading their fleets.
And it is that availability of the customer knowing what's on it. We see all the trailers, and we've seen them develop from ABS, the old MGX2s, right through to what we're fitting now. People aren't using it. People are still fitting odometers that we get from you. So there's still fitters going out there, oh, I've done this many miles or whatever, and there's so much in that, just the black box that's on there. Once you add what these guys are talking about here, it's there. It's this thing that's carrying the load can give you a lot more information, but people just aren't aware there's communication, or there's a degree of ignorance sometimes.
Yeah.
And every single member of our service team has a login, and the first thing they do on any job is look at the tracking system. So if they're booking a compliance, they're looking to see where it is before they speak to the customer. The first thing they look at when a breakdown comes in, if they're doing a tire job, it's the first thing they check. But we also have a team just constantly monitoring the system, and they get alerts when there's a rapid increase in tire temperature, for example. So then that's when we notify the customer of, look, there could be potential blowout there. We'll have someone there in 10 minutes and we'll do that job for you. So it's just, there's so much data available that you really need people focused on it all the time.
I think that's the interesting thing. All the different systems in the marketplace can give you so much data, but for the customer it can be data overload, almost to the point where they're constantly getting emails and notifications that you tend to ignore them. So it's filtering out a lot of that data and giving the customer the relevant points that sort of affect or can affect his business.
That's a great point.
That's it. And it's about customising it for each individual customer and making sure that they're going to get the most out of it. Every customer is different and everyone operates in a different way. So it's about maximising that and using that to make sure the customers are getting the most out of their fleet and the most out of the technology they've got as well, and pinpointing exactly what they need and giving them that information.
You've got to remember that our industry's, it's moving at such a pace, the speed in which it's changing, and if you speak to my dad, about changing over to an iPhone, it was quite a big deal. Now he's telling me how to do it. It's have you got this latest app? So people are getting more tech savvy with things because it's just natural. But I think in that, certainly in the trailer and the truckload, there is, as Glenn says, it's a huge amount of information. How do you separate the noise? How do you dim it down and actually take the relevant points that's right for you? And I think that's where we've really seen a sweet spot. That's really where we've seen our business sort of focusing on, well, what's relevant for this particular customer? How can we communicate effectively with this guy? What does this person want from it? And it's taken that and whether it be giving that report or whether it be giving them snapshot information, it's really something that we've had to decipher by customer. So it's not a one solution fits all. It's definitely tailored to our individual customer base.
Yeah. So Glenn, going back to your data overload point, how much of an issue is that?
Well, I think these systems now give so much information, and there's so many things you can see. I sort of liken it to, I suppose, 10 years ago when I had my first TomTom sat-nav. You keep getting these alerts come up, and for the first 2 or 3 weeks, you sort of pay attention to them, and after that you start to ignore them. And I think it's exactly the same with the amount of data. If you can filter out that data for the customer to give them the relevant points, then the systems out there become far more useful to them, rather than just some massive data that actually it's another email, it's another notification. They start ignoring them to actually, oh, that's really meaningful. It's going to help my fleet. So that would be the main thing for me, and I think a lot of the systems now, it's more about who's running them and who's filtering out the information to give the customer what he needs.
That's a key point. I think with Hireco, with our service centre, what we're doing is we're taking the various information from all of the relevant tracking systems, and we're preempting that. So we're ringing the customer and saying, look, you've got an event that's about to happen. And we become, if you like, a breakdown service as well as marrying that up with the tracking systems. And I think giving that service to the customer, anyone can pay whatever they're paying, £15–20 a month for that information per asset, but it's actually making it worthwhile, it's making it useful. And I think that's where we come into our using the systems that are available to our customers and to us, reducing that downtime as much as possible and saving the customer money.
We would have, I suppose, one critical alert when we link to fridge systems. We have our own electronic fuel gauge, and it's linked to a telematics system where it will actually automatically say you're going to run out of fuel, and it will alert whoever's programmed in there, and that's quite an important one. It's a little bit like the tyre pressure monitoring. You're going to have a flat tyre, you're going to be stuck by the side of the road, but likewise if you run out of fuel on your fridge, you've then got to get somebody out, it's got to be primed, and it can become quite costly. So I think there's certain alerts that can be put into reports which can help the customers, but there's also certain alerts that are critical, and that's probably a big point about filtering out and giving the customer that data.
Yeah, absolutely.
But making sure it goes to the right person when you have that issue, and we're coming with a solution when we're alerting that customer as well. So if it is a tyre blowout, we've already got the solution there to fix that before they even need to think about it.
Yeah, that's good.
Walking around the IAA show this year, it was clear that the major truck manufacturers don't actually know what the fuel of the future is going to be. Some are purely electric, some are hydrogen fuel cell as well. So where does that leave a business like yours? How do you know what to invest in, and how do you know what to advise your customers?
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult at the moment trying to understand where the residual value is going to be in that asset. The speed in which technology is changing, and the manufacturers are not really coming forth and telling us that this is the route to go, as you quite rightly pointed out. We have to tread really carefully about where we go next with it. So, demand's not ceasing. Demand's still very, very high for truck and van. So, we have to look at that and say, well, where are we going to be in 3 years' time? Where are we going to be in 5 years' time? And what does it look like in 10 years? And that makes life really, really difficult to gauge the contract hire package or the per week cost of that asset. It makes it very difficult for us to gauge where that residual value is going to be. I mean, the cost increase on truck at the moment, which is just absolutely off the chart. The cost base for the customer is increasing on the front. So you've got interest rates, you've got the component costs, the capital costs, the servicing costs of the asset. All these costs are coming in exponentially, and then you've got the fear factor of what do they do next? Because if we have another jump, say from Euro 5 to Euro 6, and then we go Euro 6 to whatever comes next. So if there's some sort of hybrid technology that goes into the truck for a period of time, technology is changing at such a pace that it's not yearly. It's at the moment it's weekly. What does it look like? So it just becomes increasingly difficult for ourselves. But our customer just needs an asset to deliver. He needs good fuel consumption. He needs a reliable asset. And he doesn't want that problem. And that's where we come into it. So we've got to take that risk on board. We have to give the customer a package, and he hasn't got the worry of what comes next. So we'll buy the asset, we'll maintain the asset, and then we'll dispose of the asset. He's just left with a fixed cost, and that's the piece that we've got to get right for our customer.
Hey, you are investing in zero tailpipe emission vans, aren't you?
Yes, we've had a big increase in van fleet. So at the moment we're still running about 80%. With ICE transmissions, or ICE trains, if you like. So internal combustion engines, but 20% of our fleet has gone on to fully electric vans. There's still an element of range anxiety, but again the technology is moving rapidly. So the increase in mileage that the asset is delivering is brilliant. It's really suitable to inner city work. So as long as we can account for the stem mileage, so if we can work with a customer and understand what his stem mileage is in and out of the cities, that will really dictate that that's the asset for him. Yeah. And the cost saving just running into London on an electric van is massive, because they're saving the congestion fees into London. They're saving a low emission zone, parking, so they can park and charge their van cheaply. So, what it costs to run a diesel van on a weekly contract literally is wiped out by the savings of going for an electric van at the moment. So it's definitely the way to go if you're working in certain areas. I think if a van's running up and down doing parcel deliveries up and down the N1 around M25, probably not ideal. But that's going to change now with the hybrid technology that's coming into it. Yeah. And Ford are really making great strides into in what they're doing. So we're very, very keen to see what comes out next with Volkswagen, Ford, and Renault, Peugeot, etc.
Yeah. We're seeing the launch of zero tailpipe emission tractor units at the moment. There's a few coming onto market, but soon there'll be a lot more. What does that mean for a trailer manufacturer?
We're already being asked by certain organisations whether there be the capacity and capability of carrying batteries onto trailers that could be easily changed, because people are talking about possibly dropping batteries out at some point and replacing the batteries to get a longer range at certain service stations up and down key networks. Whether that comes in any time soon, I think there's a lot to be worked on that, especially after the Kers trailer which we did, which carried a lot of capacitors on there, and it adds substantial weight to the trailer, and everybody's still very weight conscious at the moment for the not increase over 44 tonnes.
And what's BPW doing?
Well, I suppose it's been quite a change in development the last 5 years. We've always been innovative, but generally it's been to do with the towed axle. But for us in the last 5 years, we just launched our ePower axle, which is the axle generator. So basically where we're generating energy to power the battery pack on a trailer, which in turn powers the fridge. So that's had a lot of interest, and obviously we spoke earlier, if you look at, I've got one particular fleet which runs refrigerated trailers, and I think he said each year his trailer fridge fuel is works out at about £15,000 per trailer. That's pretty much doubled over the night with the red diesel to white diesel. So it's costing him £30,000 a year per trailer. So it's a massive thing where customers are looking to invest. They want to go green, but also they want to counteract the amount of change in fuel costs. So the one thing we have done, which is a little different to our competitors, rather than just create an axle that's really a dynamo, ours is a smart axle. So we've got two 8 kilowatt generators. But the main difference for us is that we don't want to drag the fuel economy of the truck down. If you just have a straightforward dynamo on your axle, then when the truck and trailer are pulling away initially, you've got that friction on the dynamo on your axle, which is dragging against the fuel consumption of the truck. Likewise, if you're going uphill, you've got the same thing. And also when your battery's fully charged, it's still dragging against the truck. So ours is a little bit different. It's a smart axle. So basically, until it gets above 15 kilometers an hour, it won't engage the drive. So there's no extra friction on the axle and dragging down the fuel capacity on the truck. Likewise, if it goes up a hill, it's got a slope sensor. So again, it will disconnect its drive so that you're not pulling against the fuel consumption of the truck. And mainly, it will charge in its regenerative, if you like, downhill and under braking. Yeah. So that's the main big difference. And then also we've got a drive axle out now for up to 7.5 ton rigid vehicles in conjunction with a company called Banks. So quite a lot of development, and also developments, I suppose, technically along the lines of the TPMS, where we're doing tyre inflation. So customers have got a real appetite now, I think, to look at probably a little bit more in depth on what they can do to use technology to offset the costs and make their fleets run more efficiently.
And I think from those two conversations and part of mine, there's now a realisation that the trailer and the truck can actually work together. For the first time, the trailers are more advanced than ever. I mean, there's still lag behind the trailer, but from what Glenn's talking about, drive axles and then the technology, ePMS, TPMS, now they're actually starting to talk to each other, because traditionally they haven't.
That's right.
And now people are seeing that these things, one day they might actually be combined. They might not be. It's just the load carrier traditionally. It's always lag behind on braking, everybody's gone for the bare minimum. Now there's a realisation, I think, that that's just starting to change a little bit, that you've got all this space on the trailer behind the side guards or wherever, you can actually put something that could aid the truck.
I think that the trailer has always been seen as the poor relation, but in effect, it's, whilst it's not pulling the load, it's carrying the load. And if the trailer goes down, everything stops. So realistically, I suppose it's just coming to terms, and the technology level is stepping up towards where the trailer is becoming almost as important as the truck.
And I think the one benefit of having this perfect storm, as in Brexit, COVID, Ukraine, the real benefit for us as an industry is that it's forcing us into moving forward with technology quickly. Rapidly, people are coming in with cost-saving devices, whether that be efficient fuel savings on fridge engines, whether that be developing new technology in the fridge, new technology into truck, trailer. We're really seeing a rapid increase in these systems that are just coming forth. And the good thing is customers really want to engage with you, whereas in the past it was a real issue to get engaged because people were so busy and everyone was just on the same road. Now people are very open to discuss what can we do that's different, what's new and different within the industry today. Things like Hanover, Hanover was a great show for looking at what's the industry doing today. It's just a real shame that it's just not a bit close to the home, but it's good for the industry that we are we're all in the same mindset.
Yeah, and I think it's made, also from our side, it's made suppliers engage more. So we just mentioned about our ePower, that was really in collaboration with Thermo-King. So normally our two companies would be completely different areas of the market, but actually we've both come together for a common goal really, which is first and foremost for the customer, to sort of ease that pain. But it's only something in some cases that we can all work together, and that also goes hand in hand with our trailer builder customers. It's these guys have got to fit them, albeit not yourself on the fridge side, but the technologies now are becoming more and more complicated. So they'll give the customer benefit, but also from a fitment point of view, it's also more important that our trailer builders are involved, so they know how they're fitted and everything works well.
Yeah. And as a large buyer of assets, truck and trailer, we're very grateful to our suppliers, SDC, BPW, Denison, MAN, Mercedes, Volkswagen. And the reason I think we're so grateful is it's been such a testing time in the industry with all these outside influences, outside factors coming in. If you take the trailer industry alone, not only have you had these huge price increases and that have come into the fore, and huge challenges with supply chains, but you've also got trailer manufacturers that left the marketplace. I mean, Cartwright leaving the market, etc., has left a big hole. So there's a reduction of about 3,000 trailers in trailer supply, which puts massive pressure onto the likes of SDC, Denison, Lawrence David to try and keep up with the demand. And at the same time, we're putting them under major pressure to evolve and innovate new technology. Equally at the same time, Paul's got a problem with staff. Trying to keep as many staff as he can in his business. So I think it's been very testing times for everyone, but you've really seen the industry pull together as one to say, look, we can do this. It might not have always been easy. We might have been at loggerheads quite a lot over the last couple of years over price increases because nobody likes them, and obviously I'm under major pressure from my customers.
And deliveries.
But we're getting there, and we're working. Our customers have been brilliant. in understanding where we are. We've been able to sweat older assets, so we've been able to keep the fleet running, whether it be truck with MAN or trailer with SDC and Denison. But we've all kind of worked together to get over this problem, and it's been and what's coming out of it actually is something that's going to be a lot better than it was when we went into these issues.
Well, I suppose you mentioned smart tech. In effect, that's also gone around the industry. We've all had to work a little smarter and adapt to the circumstances, whether it's COVID, Brexit, supply situation and everything it has. So it's probably made us also look at own aspects of a business and look at how we can be more effective and efficient.
So you touched on the lack of staff, which leads us neatly onto the driver shortage. How is that affecting you guys, and what, if anything, are you doing to help tackle the problem?
Yeah, I think for us, we've certainly seen our customers be impacted by the driver shortage. There was a lot in the press, and I think that became a sort of scaremongering to some extent. But yeah, definitely there was a real lack of drivers coming through. The overall age, or the average age of the driver was increasing. People retiring, etc. So that natural fall off wasn't replaced with new people coming into the industry. It wasn't seen as an exciting job role, and I think our customers, we're talking to them, have really kind of generated a lot of enthusiasm to become drivers. And when you look at the quality of equipment that our customers are buying for their drivers now, it's unbelievable. You look at sort of a new MAN or a new Mercedes, new Scania. I mean, to be sat in that environment, in that truck, it's a fantastic place to be. With all the modern technology involved in that asset, so I think they've done a great thing there, and they've also putting great schemes together. Look, we'll pay for you to become an HGV driver, we'll entice you in the market. So we had to follow suit to some degree, although we don't employ that many drivers ourselves, but we had to build facilities such as what we're in today. So our truck park really had to be commensurate with everything else that we do. It had to be high quality. So drivers are the lifeblood of our industry. So we have to look after them. We have to make sure that we have the absolutely the best facilities for them. So this place that we built here, this truck park, if you go out and have a look, it's kept immaculate. The welfare facilities are kept immaculate. They're cleaned every hour. We've got free chefs downstairs. The chefs prepare, home cooked food. Nothing's bought out of a packet. And it's a place that I would want to come and eat. And so if I can do that, or if we can do that as Hireco for the drivers, I think it sends a real message to the guys, and this is kind of at the forefront of truck parks in the UK. RHA to some degree are promoting this as kind of the go-to place. If you look at the back of each truck, there's a bin. And it sounds funny, but drivers want to empty their trucks. They want to keep their environment clean and tidy. Well, look, we'll help you do that. If you want us to come in and help clean your truck, if you've got a problem with your truck, we can deal with it. Come and have a nice cook dinner. We've got welfare machines everywhere available to just keep that sort of environment right for the driver. And I think from a business as a whole, we're seeing that a huge shortage in staff in general. So the driver shortage kicked off a conveyor belt with events. So we saw, our engineering teams kind of deplenish because they'd moved in to become an HGV drivers because there was a lot of money offered. So then we got a shortage in the technicians available to us. So we had to have a training program to bring new people into that industry. So we're seeing it across the board, not just in drivers, in jobs as a whole. Even in the offices to some degree. So I think it was a kick-off. I think you felt it as well.
Yeah, media. I think there was such a media thing last year to create jobs for people to go into HGV jobs. there because there was suddenly an awareness that the conditions were better. Gone are the days of some greasy cafe with a truck parked on the side of it with a bloke getting out of his cab. It was suddenly facilities like this, and the earnings were quite apparent where we'd got customers who were throwing money, advertising, going down queues of trailers in their RDCs, advertising, offering drivers more money for it. The knock-on effect for us is some of our guys went, trained as James said, to become drivers, and there, so we were trying to fill that in at the back end to train people to build trailers. So I think the general skill shortage became apparent very, very quickly. Middle and back end of last year.
And I tell you how bad it was here at the truck park. We had to ban a particular customer because they'd come in as used the parking facilities, and of a night, one of the owners was going round and putting little notes underneath the windscreen wipers of the truck saying, "We will pay you more money if you come and work for us." So because it caused a massive furore, so we had to say, right, you can't park here anymore because you're just affecting, our other customers in the truck park. So, we really saw that there was some skullduggery there. But
it's even had a knock-on effect for the likes of BPW, in that obviously we rely on a lot of the vendors and the companies out there doing the correct level of maintenance. Something's going down the road at 44 tonne at 56 mile an hour, it needs to be safe and it needs to be able to stop. And what we actually seen is a lot of the truck technicians or the trailer technicians that have got their HGV licences moving over to become drivers, because like they said, they could earn a little bit more money, and then that skill disappears from that particular network or that industry. And the biggest thing really is encouraging, if you like, the youngsters or the new people to come in and sort of look at that as a career. So one thing we've had to do within our business is we've now got one person that focuses on the maintenance vendors and the training side. So we were running probably one training course a month. We're now running sort of 2 a week, just to try and make sure that skill base is there, because it's so important.
It's another cost impact as well, because you're having to pay more money to bring those people into the industry. And if you take, say, a tyre engineer, you want to convince a young person to come and join that business. He's going to get called out at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter on the M25 to change a tyre. It's not that enticing. So the money's got to be right. So there's a knock-on impact right the way through to the end user to keep that asset on the road.
Also with the smart technology, you're seeing a different type of employee coming into the business, because we're employing young analysts who are coming in with a real good background in analysing from different industries. But because of all this data which is available, they can apply their skills to this industry. And you're seeing, a real good calibre of people coming in from that route as well.
Yeah, I suppose it's sort of twofold. I would say when I left school, I wanted to be a mechanic. I love my cars, and I think lots of the lads and people I was at school with were looking at something similar. And that's probably disappeared in the last 10 or 15 years. Let's say that there was 100 kids in school, and probably 20 of them might have wanted to be a mechanic or work with cars or trucks. There's probably now 5. So it's interesting you say that, obviously you've got another level, which is the guys that are coming out that are really good with the data. Yeah. And I think that can also be used now with the smart technology at maybe plugging a gap.
Yeah, with the smart technology as well, it's preventative maintenance, so we can see what's wrong with the trailer before it comes in to be looked at. So we know there's already an issue with the brakes, so it minimises the downtime and it minimises the maintenance needed. It's already honed in, like, this is the issue, this needs fixing. So there's less time needed in the workshop, meaning that the workshop can get through a lot more in a day.
How long is it going to be before we get automated driving? Automated trucks. Where does that go? Doing it with cars. What happens next with trucks?
Of course, autonomy is going to happen somewhere like this first, isn't it? Around the ports.
Yeah, it will do. The port already running electric technology on their turbo trucks, and if you're working on circuits around the sites at the moment, this will be one of the first places that automation comes in. But again, I don't think you can replace a professional driver. I mean, we see some absolutely fantastic drivers coming into the quality of drivers that we see nowadays. We see it all the time, every day. We have interaction with drivers coming into the truck park. we have interaction with the drivers coming into our sites. And what we've noticed, and it's absolute fact, what we've really noticed is the amount of damage that's happening to our assets has dropped by about 25%. And I think that's because so many companies now are invested in driver training, and there's so many driver aids on the truck now, and on the trailer with the reverse technology, etc. And you're really seeing a reduction in damage, and people are much more aware of like the loading. So when the assets are being loaded now, the people that are loading the assets are fully trained, and they're not just going with a forklift smashing the life out of something. They're really careful about what they're doing. And again, those practices are just bringing a huge amount of professionalism into the industry that kind of maybe wasn't there before, or maybe only at a certain level. But you're seeing it right across the board now, which is a real good thing for the industry.
I think the driver trainers are also using the technology now that's available from the telematics, whether it's truck or trailer, where you can identify things like roll stability activations, harsh braking. So as an example, I've certainly seen driver trainers use it where they've had lots of roll stability events, and you can actually pin it down to predominantly one location, one particular roundabout out of one particular depot, and rather than chastise every driver in his driver training meetings, he can go, right guys, just be careful coming up to this roundabout, we've had 105 roll stability activations, you need to know because one's going to tip over sooner or later. So I think the technology is a really good point if it's used proactively, where you can actually also use things like that with the driver training.
And I think, that really is very apparent, particularly say with customers like GXO and XPO. So the engineering team at those two businesses right now are so involved in what are the characteristics of a particular contract. So they ask us for real intense information. Can you give us a highlight of the damage at a certain site? So they'll know that they've done the sidewall, the near side rear tyre, and that they've had 15 damage events on that particular on that particular tyre. So they'll know, well, maybe we've got a higher curb at that site, or maybe we've got something, so we need to go and look at either the driving characteristics, or we need to look at the facilities themselves. Might be that in the site in the Midlands, the load restraint system is constantly damaged, and that might cost the company £15,000 across the year. Well, maybe it's we need to train the loading staff at that site and reduce that damage. So the professionalism is lifted, and I think the businesses like that then has those people leave and go other smaller companies and new companies, and they take that training and awareness with them. So I think those companies are at the forefront of pushing professionalism across the industry, which is great from our perspective.
There's definitely a lot of doom and gloom in the industry at the moment, but are there any positives as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've as much as we see it, cost increases, we're seeing interest rate hikes. That's happening across the board. That's happening for everyone. But demand's not waning. Our order book's as full as it's ever been, and we're actively pursuing new business, and we are increasing the size of the fleet. So next year we're looking at bringing in another 1,200 assets.
So what does that take you to?
That'll take us. We've got a used centre, which is HDS centre, which sells around 800 to 1,000 assets a year. So we think we'll increase the fleet by about 500 for next year. And that's a net increase, but we're bringing in between 12 or 1,400 new assets into the business. Our business model is built on bringing in new assets to maximise uptime, to keep the older stuff moving off the back of the fleet. So the demand for used assets is massive because of the price of the new ones is so high. And with Hireco, when someone's buying a 5-year-old asset from us, they're buying they know what they're getting. They're getting an SDC, BPW trailer, very, very standard, and it's just a fantastic product in a used market. So we're seeing big demand for that. We're also seeing big demand for new equipment, albeit the prices are rising and different pressures. But we actively, want to keep moving, want to keep the business, where it is. So, yeah, we're looking at replacing MAN tracked units. We're looking at, big replacement of trailers, fridge trailers, bringing new fridge technology in. So for us, it really is, to some extent, business as usual. Albeit some added challenges around the edges, but we're here to support our customers, here to support the new customers coming on board, and it's exciting times, particularly with the technology that we've been talking around. I think that really is going to be the forefront of what we're offering.
I can echo what James said. We've got an order book that's as strong as ever, with the same varied customer base. With, again, on the technology, we're trying to keep that advancing all the time and keep ahead of that with new generations of EBS, and also then that we can extend warranties on things as well to keep it going, to keep these guys' costs down, and then hopefully in that way of being able to keep a cost fixed for a term.
Yeah, I think very similar from our side. I think it's positive that the market is buoyant. And I think for us, the lead times and the volatility in pricing has been a concern. So we've actually put in more production facilities at Leicester. So previously everything was completely manufactured and sent over from Germany. About 8 years ago we started assembling some of the suspensions at Leicester. And then in the last 18 months we're now doing complete axle assembly. So we're bringing in the bare beams, we've got our own wheel end line where we're assembling the hubs, the drums, and then complete axle assembly. So that's obviously been quite a big investment from our side. It's also brought new employees, and I suppose from our point of view give us more flexibility to support our customers, whether it's trailer builders or fleets. So positivity, the market's buoyant, we're employing more people. So going forward, hopefully it will continue.
You said doom and gloom, but let's be honest, until someone finds a way of shoving a loaf of bread down a telephone wire, everybody in this room needs it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very true, very true.
Yeah, and on the subject of bread, I think it's time to go downstairs and sample some of the food here.
Why not?
Sounds like a good idea.
Thank you guys.